Hello, everybody. Welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, hello, welcome. This is Essential Patience, and I am Patience. I typically tend to not follow too much on social media or social conversations. Whenever something starts to get popular, people are just rage baiting, letting all their trauma be known. And once we are able to finally calm down, we are able to have a more productive conversation, because I think once the dust clears, we are able to see things for what they are and we can have more reasonable conversation. And that's why in today's topic, we are talking about stay-at-home girlfriends, stay-at-home wives, and stay-at-home moms. I feel like the target audience is like people from like maybe ages 18 to 40, but especially I think among the young demographic. And while I'm sure a lot of us view this content, I'm also sure, at least statistically, that a lot of people don't have the privilege to stay home or be in any of these situations. So this is a minority of people, and that's what we're going to get into. I might be a little late to this topic, but if you've been on my channel for any length of time, you would know I like to approach my topics with research, with nuance, and hopefully to add to this conversation rather than regurgitating the same talking points. Hopefully in the about a year that this topic has been popular, you've heard many commentary on it, because I'm definitely going to approach it from a research perspective, a little bit of life experience, and the angle I'm really taking on this stay-at-home girlfriends, stay-at-home wives, stay-at-home moms is very big on finances, so that you don't feel like you're missing out, but you don't feel like you have to make one choice or another. It's good to see the data to be more realistic rather than to listen to the exaggerated talking points on social media, because everybody's trying to push an agenda, whether it's for you to be part of it, to not be a part of it. So let's look at the data, and hopefully we'll be able to get some clarity in this conversation that does not have so much of that. Like this video, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and ring the notification bell so you do not miss out on any of my future videos. And share this video with somebody you think it'll be helpful towards. I think that a lot of people could benefit from this conversation. And if you're coming here hoping that I would trash any of these concepts, this is absolutely not the video. I believe one of the best things about life is choices, especially if it's not immoral, if it's not hurting anybody. We all have a right to the choices of the type of lives that we live. The whole point of this video is to bring you the research that would hopefully allow for you to make a clear decision that is not based on emotions or social media, your favorite influencers. I'm not a stakeholder in this conversation. I don't care if you are a stay-at-home wife, you're a stay-at-home mom, if you're a working woman. There's benefit of all of those, and as a working woman, very neutral on a lot of this conversation, with no agenda of converting you into a stay-at-home wife, a tradwife, a trad woman, or a boss babe working girl. And that's exactly where I want to start, by categorizing myself as a career woman. I'm 23 years old. I am an engineer, but I've had a job since I was like 16 years old. Not coming from a place where I've had the privilege of not having to earn my way through life. I'm not one of those people who swing way towards one side, who thinks, oh, women should stay at home and do nothing, or at least the myth of it. And I'm not swinging all the way to the other side where I feel like everyone should have to go to work. I do believe that my career is more of a God-given talent, a God-given purpose. So now that you know who I am, a little bit about me, probably more than I share on my usual content, let's go into the topic that has been gaining social media by storm for like the past year, maybe even more, which is the stay-at-home girlfriends, stay-at-home wives, stay-at-home moms, and the financial consequences of such lifestyle. We're going to go through the pros, the cons. So to understand it, let's start with definitions.
The definition of stay-at-home girlfriends, stay-at-home wives, and stay-at-home moms, their roles in relationship with their partners and spouses. The commitment.
The stay-at-home girlfriend, which I think is very new, is a woman who stays at home and is financially dependent on her partner and does not work, meaning that they're not married, there is no legal binding, and she just doesn't work and she stays at home to take care of the home life. A stay-at-home wife is a woman who is married. She doesn't have to be a mom. She doesn't have work, but she has a legally binding marital contract with her partner. She is married to her husband. She also manages the household, and a stay-at-home mom could be a woman who is married or not married. So it could be a stay-at-home girlfriend, a stay-at-home fiance who has children, or it could be a stay-at-home wife who also has children. But the main point about being a stay-at-home mom is the children part, not necessarily the married or single part, but their children involved. So now that we have all these definitions, let's move on to the next part, which is discussing lifestyle.
Lifestyles, the glitz, the glamour, the truth, and the rest. What are their lives truly like, and what roles do they perform for their partners, spouses, family, and household?
So I think stay-at-home moms and stay-at-home wives are often grouped together because a lot of women do work till they have children in this day and age, rather than just being a stay-at-home wife where you have no children. If I got married tomorrow and we decide that I should not work, I don't have kids, but I'm going to be a stay-at-home wife. When you hear stay-at-home mom, you immediately think wife, but that's not necessarily true. And I think the current term for a stay-at-home wife would probably be a homemaker. There's some stay-at-home wives who are not necessarily homemakers, especially if they're very privileged to the point where they do have the cleaning service, chef. So a lot of these terms, it causes a lot of confusion. And I think out of these three categories, one of the riskiest place to be is being the stay-at-home mom when you are not legally binded to your partner, because at least with a stay-at-home girlfriend there are no children involved. With a stay-at-home wife and a stay-at-home mom with a legally binding contract, you have a level of recognition and rights. But when you're a stay-at-home mom with no marriage, that can put you at a risk that is way beyond what I personally feel comfortable with. And I, for one, definitely believe these roles can be fulfilling. I don't think that you have to work to find fulfillment or even build a business, but there is some unique financial risk and unique challenges that can present itself because you are fully dependent on your husband or partner. So going on to trad wives, it is all the rave, whether you like it or hate it. It is short for traditional wife.
Who are trad wives? The rise of trad wives and their embrace of perceived traditional values and performative social media influencing a glamorized look of the past. Is this traditional values in homemaking, or cosplaying 1950s and romanticizing without any historical context or knowledge of the past?
So a lot of these women who are trad wives are embracing traditional roles, or what they think is traditional roles. We'll get into that. Choosing to stay home, becoming homemakers, and support their husbands. You will see why I say perceived traditional roles. And that lifestyle doesn't look as glamorized as it is on social media. Social media always takes things a bit further, so that when you're making the decision to become a trad wife, especially one that is not on social media, it's important to know the day-to-day and to make that with the full knowledge rather than with the influence of social media. And also to make that choice freely rather than to be pressured into it. Growing up, I had a working mom and a working dad. Because I did grow up in a third world country, Ghana, I did see a lot of traditional marriages where wives were stay-at-home wives and stay-at-home moms. I think third and fourth wave feminism did a number on women where a lot of women swung way to another side. But I'm not going to discount why feminism was so important.
Feminism and the perfect past. Why did feminism even start if the past was so perfect? Taking off the rose-colored glasses of the past and why women chose to have human rights. Remembering the women who have always worked, and the privilege of single income households.
Even though I do not brand myself as a feminist, I do like a lot of aspects of feminism. I think today some parts of it have gone way too far, and there are a lot of parts that I do not agree with, but there's some parts that I do think is important. Women were fighting so that we can today have the choice to make the decision whether we choose to work or choose to stay home, but then also give us the power to be recognized as human beings, to have equal human rights, to be treated with equality, get equal payments, to have access to a lot of resources that a lot of women who were stuck could not have access to. And there was a strong reason why a lot of women supported feminism, because life was not as glamorous as a lot of these trad wives like to make it to be.
What's a fact from history that just seems too dark to be true? How about how they used to not have to tell women when they had cancer, they only had to tell their husbands? So they didn't tell Alabama's first female governor that she was dying of uterine cancer. So back in Alabama in 1961, when Lurleen Wallace was giving birth, doctors noticed that she had signs of uterine cancer. But as was customary at the time, they didn't tell Lurleen, they only told her husband, George. Usually they did this because they thought that women's nerves were too sensitive to handle information like this, so their husbands or other men in their lives would be better at making medical decisions for them. So George found out about his wife's cancer, but chose to not tell her and asked that the doctors don't tell her either. And in 1966, Lurleen gets elected to be the governor of Alabama. At this point, she has stage 4 cancer. It is completely spread throughout her body, and her husband has still not told her the extent of it. She did eventually find out that she had uterine cancer from another doctor, but still, most of the medical information was being told to George, who just didn't want to tell her about it. And she passed away in 1968, just 1 year into her term as governor.
I, for one, am not crying about the old days of boss babes being over, because I did think that also did a number on women. Everything has its good and bad. And once we recognize that, we can have a nuanced conversation where it's not being overrun with emotions and personal agenda. I, for one, hope in the near future to make a video about the so-called traditional wives of the past, because I think that a lot of people, they are not very in tune with their history. If you are able to access history, you will know that majority of women have always worked. And that's why it has surprised me that a lot of people think that prior to the 1950s, women sat at home and did practically nothing and just focused on housework. To that, I ask you, who do you think were the midwives? Who do you think were a lot of the nurses, wet nurses for that matter, maids, cooks, laundry women? Who do you think was sewing clothing, being seamstresses, nannies? They've always existed. So the idea that all women were just staying at home is ridiculous. A lot of women did have their businesses at home. For example, women who lived on farms. They may have been selling the foods produced on the farm, but let's say they had a shop on their farm. So they're home, but they're working. There have always been a small percentage of women who've had the privilege of being able to stay at home and not contribute financially to their home. Let's say the history of foot binding in China. I was very interested in this and I was doing some research on it. And one of the reasons why foot binding was so popular was to show that they could have a woman not contribute anything. Like, that's how rich they were. They had so much money that they didn't even need a member of their household to help them in anything. So what does that tell you about the rest? When people's foot were bind, it was so painful that sometimes they needed help moving, doing the most basic thing. Who do you think was around them to help them do those things? Let me take a wild guess. Other women whose families could not afford to have their foot bind and to stay at home doing nothing. Ask your mom if she worked in her younger days. Ask your grandmothers, your grand aunts. Ask them about their mothers and their great grandmothers. Did they work? And you would see a long history of women who have always worked. They've been a privileged class where they did not have to, but a lot of women throughout history have, at least at some point of their lives, had to work. And that's one of the main discussion points I think is really missing from this conversation, is about the privilege of being able to stay at home. Now, there are some situations where it's not necessarily a privilege, but rather it just makes financial sense. Let's say, for example, a husband is making $70,000 and his wife is making $30,000. They have 3 children, all under the age of 4. Taking them to daycare is very expensive. Now, the average cost of daycare is well over $10,000 per kid per year. It just makes financial sense that she stays at home. All of her income would otherwise go towards taxes and childcare, at least until they get older where they can get into school. With that being said, over 60% of households in America are dual income.
Dual income households and the rising cost of living. The rise of dual income households because everything is expensive and wages have not kept up with the cost of living. How many men can truly afford to financially take care of a household all on their own?
It's also recognized that today there's a lot of divorces, single income households. For example, I live in a single income household. It's just me. So take all of this into consideration when you hear that 60% of households are dual income. It's a lot of houses. And a lot of reasons why these households are dual income is not because women are just wishing to work. It's because a lot of these households require it.
Does anyone know how I can cancel my membership to the whole feminist movement? Because it's not giving what it was supposed to give, so I'm no longer interested. Even the word feminist, what is feminine about me working hard and paying bills? Back then I'm singing independent. I don't know what possessed me to be singing such nonsense. It was the work of the devil, to be wanting equal this and equal that. How the man to be doing the manly things and the woman to be doing damsel in distress. Oh, I don't know what I would do without you. Because me, I need the man. For every little thing I want to be calling my. man. Because who'll be reaching the top shelf for me? Who'll be killing spiders? Fine babe like me should be coming and killing spiders. Do I look like Xena the warrior princess? Listen, I don't know who brainwashed us. I don't know who started the movement, if it was Susan B. Anthony and the suffrage rights. But I'm suffering more today than I was yesterday. So please, whoever's in charge, unsubscribe me from the list. Cancel the membership now!
It is expensive. So a lot of women have to financially contribute. That's how households are able to build financial stability. The median household income in the United States is about $75,000. That is for a husband, a wife, and their children. That doesn't go as far as it used to a few years ago. Not to mention that the median cost of a house in America is over $400,000. So if the average salary of a man who works full-time is about $60,000 or less, then you're looking at them needing help in order to bring up that household income and looking at their spouses to participate in financially contributing to the household. But even beyond spouses, cohabitating is becoming more and more popular, and it comes with a lot of risk. Study shows that couples who are cohabitating have a higher risk of separating or breaking up compared to married couples. I know some people are like, well, it's like we're married. It's not. And maybe it's because you're just not binding together.
Just living together versus getting married. Which is better according to science? Couples living together that are not married are more likely to separate regardless of how long they've been together. They are less likely to combine their money into a joint bank account, which is very beneficial for relationships. They are less happy overall, less satisfied in their relationship. The quality of their relationship is worse. They are less likely to have more than one child, and no matter how many children they have, they are still more likely to separate.
They're more likely to walk away. People bring up the fact that 40 to 50% of marriages end in divorce. But it's also worth noting that they're talking about all marriages, including people who've married 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 8 times, like Elizabeth Taylor. All of those are added together to make up that divorce rate. Typically, your first marriage is the most likely to last. And if you're able to take on the research of like what can make your marriage more successful, you're able to lower your chances of getting divorced. For example, making sure you're not extremely young, but also doing at least 3 months of premarital counseling, making sure that you two know each other, you have similar values, and you both understand a lot about what you're going into, as well as age gaps. Age gap relationships are more likely to fail as well. So you are able to make better decisions about your partner rather than going to marriage with a mindset of like, this is just a marriage, but rather you go in prepared to make it last. But even in a lot of marriages, aside from infidelity, financial reasons are one of the biggest causes of divorce. So if you're able to get on the same page financially with your spouse, you are able to save yourself so much stress and so much arguments that will be coming up in the future. And it always surprises me, a lot of people don't have financial talks before they get married. Some people don't even know how much their spouse makes. That's crazy. But the reason why I bring all of that up, the divorce rate, the breakup rates, is because after a breakup, women are more likely to fall into financial destitute than men.
Divorce is unfortunate and real. Unfortunately, divorce is real. How many women struggle financially after divorce? Because in case you did not know, they don't always get half, and sometimes half is not as much as you think.
Research shows that women's household income drops by approximately 41%, and a lot of times since they're having the children, even with child support, the average child support payments is like $450. That's not going to make a huge change, especially when you compare that to just 23% for men. I don't care what people talk about, women take half, men are losing half their asset. That is just simply not true. The likelihood of you getting half of everything is so low, and sometimes it has to be such a bad divorce for you to even get that close. But typically, whoever has the resources, the income, can afford a better lawyer. When you get married, hopefully you're not getting divorced, but it also underlines the importance of financial planning and being involved, even if you're a stay-at-home mom, a stay-at-home wife. And that's where my biggest reservations come in when we're talking about a lot of these financially dependent girlfriends, moms, wives, the propensity for financial abuse.
Financial abuse is real. The realities of financial abuse in a relationship, the signs, and the importance of transparency and equality in financial decisions.
Financial abuse is when one spouse controls all of the finances and limits the other person's access to the financial information or access to the finances independently. And it can occur in any of these relationships, in a lot of different relationships. It is always important to understand the science of it, because I listen to a lot of Dave Ramsey, like when people call in and there are people who've married for like 20 years and their spouse would not give them access to their investment, their savings account, because you can't handle it, you would get overwhelmed. Really? If she wants to see it, let her see it. If he wants to see it, let him see it. So even in a situation where one person is bringing in all the income and the other person is not financially contributing or contributing less or even not at all, there is still a need for transparency. There's no reason why you should have access to all of the accounts, know how much debt you're in or how much is left on your mortgage. It is important to know all of that information. It should be transparent. You should both be involved in financial planning, whether he contributes everything, whether she contributes everything, or whether you both equally contributing to the best of your ability. And one point that I keep hearing about this, well, back in the day.
Financial abuse tales of the past, the realities of the past when women had little choice and experienced financial abuse and high rates of spousal abandonment.
Back in the day, infidelity, financial abuse, spousal abuse, and spousal abandonment were often hidden. You could go and look at the rates of spousal abandonment. You know the whole thing, my dad went to go get milk and never came back, or he went to go get a cigarette and never came back. Where do you think that came from? That was very real. Understanding the past and where we are in society today and the problems that still persist in our society would help us hopefully appreciate the choices that we have today and put ourselves in the best position when planning financially and when being involved in a relationship. How to make sure that there's financial transparency, removing any type of financial abuse that could possibly occur or be occurring. And just to dig a little deeper on back in the day thing, have you ever talked to women who are like 60 plus years old? As a young woman, one advice I always get from a lot of older women is to always have your own, always keep a stash, always keep something at least to yourself. And I wonder why. Like, if it was so great back in the day, if a lot of these women had zero issues, if they trusted their spouses were honest and they had transparency, there was no abuse, unethical things going on, or things that were socially acceptable but downright abusive going on, why do these women always tell younger women to always have their own, to always keep a stash, to always make sure you have something just in case? When you speak to people who have more life experience than you, you get to understand more than a social media 24-year-old girl who is a stay-at-home girlfriend could ever give you, because they don't have the lived life experience. They have not seen not just what happened to them, but their friends, their family members, their mothers, their grandmothers. They can tell you that life experience that social media influencer will not do so, because she's trying to push a certain agenda. But there's still pros and cons to each of these.
Pros and cons. The pros and cons of being a stay-at-home girlfriend, a stay-at-home wife, and a stay-at-home mom. Knowing your options and making the best decisions for you and your family.
Starting with the stay-at-home girlfriend, I personally think being a stay-at-home girlfriend has zero pros. Maybe it's my religious view, but I don't think you should be cohabitating with somebody you're not married. I don't think any pros can come from that. I don't care if it's like you're saving money or how you save money, like you're not even contributing. And let's say one day he meets somebody and he decides to dump you. He's like, get out of my house. You have no right to be there. Let's say you have nothing saved up. How are you going to start? So it's not a lifestyle that I personally would ever encourage to anybody. If anything, it just has a whole bunch of cons. And that's not just me speaking. If you look at the research on couples who cohabitate, they are found to be less happy and have a lower satisfaction in their relationship. And part of the reason why is because a lot of the women would then want to get married, but they have no leverage because they are already staying at home doing wifey duties for this man. When she's ready to get married, he's not. So she's staying there. She doesn't have anything to leave to. She's comfortable-ish, but she's not happy because she's anxious. She knows that this man can put her out anytime. Financially dependent on this man. She wants more, but she can't demand more. She has no leverage. And a lot of them are just scared to start over, so they keep staying.
And just so I understand, you two have been together for 5 years. You're not married, but you bought a house together.
A year in of dating. I felt that marriage was going to come. We would be getting married, probably have a kid, maybe 2 by now. And 4 years later, I didn't expect my life to look the way that it looks. I don't want to keep putting my values on the back burner. I just feel like 5 years is long enough to kind of know if that, like, that's what you want to do. Like, even if it wasn't a wedding, it just at least be engaged.
I would definitely like to be more financially stable like before we got married.
Is there a number, or is it more of a feeling that you would know if you felt secure?
There's not really a number.
And the more they stay, the more they've seen that they've invested time. Then the next thing you know, they're a 10-year girlfriend and they're like, well, I've already invested 10 years. I'm older. What can I do but stay? It's never too late to leave and start over.
Brad, what would you do with that extra money every month?
Probably invest it and then use the rest of it, like you said, to start doing more trips. I'd actually have money to spend on golf.
Candace, what would you do?
Figured I'd put like 30,000 into investments. I would take so much of it to pay off like the 25,000 I have left on debt, set so much aside for a wedding, and then so much for a down payment, and then probably beef up the emergency fund and like my self-care fund, like, yeah, stuff like that.
But let's go on to more cons. Again, the financial dependency is not a good place to be at all. Like, we've talked a lot about this already. And then we have the lack of legal protection. You're not even getting child support, which I'm not saying have a kid to do that. Don't jump from the frying pan into the fire. Also, the social stigma, which is becoming less stigmatized today. There are some people who look at that and think you shouldn't be shacking up before you get married. Christian beliefs, or people who just believe that, you know, first come love, then marriage, then baby and the baby carriage. The next one, probably the least riskiest one, is being a stay-at-home wife. And this one, I'm going to the perspective of like not having children. You have the legal protection, so that's definitely a pro. You get to explore, to do different things that you would like, different passions. You can volunteer, you get to relax, probably sleep the required apparently 9 hours a day women need. Certain times of the month you need 10. Like, you can get all that when you're not working. And of course, you're able to become a homemaker if that's something that you enjoy. And if that's a fulfilling life for you, I think that could be very great and empowering for a lot of women. Cooking food from scratch. I love to cook from scratch. And if I could do that all day, I would not mind at all. And cleaning too. I actually enjoy a lot of aspects of traditionalism. It's just time and place. And of course, there's still cons just in case the marriage fails. It is, of course, risky to be financially dependent on a person, but then also retirement. Let's say you are watching a lot of the videos of the tradwife to single moms in their 40s and 50s pipeline. You will see that a lot of these older women, they get a divorce and they don't seem to be leaving with half. Sometimes there is no half to leave with. You don't have a retirement savings, so you're either going to have to work extremely hard, which there are gaps in your resume, so it's going to be hard to get a job. Some of these women left their careers and their college, so they don't have a degree, become a stay-at-home wife, so they don't have really anything to fall back on. They never really had a career to leave, and now they're in their 40s and 50s and they're starting it all over again. And it can also be isolating depending on the partner that you have. Some women are not really socializing, they're at home all day. Maybe they get to socialize when their husband comes home, or maybe once in a while. But if you have a bustling social life, like, that's amazing. But if you're the only stay-at-home wife and all of your friends are working, you're just not gonna have anybody to really hang out with during the day. That's where volunteering and stuff comes in. There's always options. And of course, last but absolutely not the least, is the stay-at-home mom. This goes for whether they are married or not. I'll make a few differentiations. There's no pros to having a baby by a man you're not married to, not at all. There's no amount of child support in the world that can justify that. But of course, if you have the legal protection, then you have the ability to stay home, take care of your kids. You're saving on childcare. You're able to nurture your kids. You could even homeschool them. So you have the ability to really bond with them and spend time with them, because the first few years are probably the most amount of time you're going to spend with your kid. Once they start getting older, you're going to want to probably spend less time with you just naturally. They're going to have their own friends, their own identity. And then by the time they finish college, sometimes you hardly ever see them. They move away. They come back, of course, to visit. They talk to you, but it's never quite the same. So it's always good to have that moment to really bond with your children. That's something that I definitely think about. I would probably like to stay home a little while when I have kids. You know, my teeny tiny baby going to daycare. If you're staying at home, then you're not going to work from a specific time to a specific time, then coming home, trying to get your kids ready, cook. It's more flexible day-to-day basis, especially if you're really good with time management. And of course, we still have the cons of, God forbid, your marriage doesn't work, or if you don't have the legal protection, then that's even worse. In case of divorce, if he's well off, you might be able to get alimony and child support. And same as the cons for the stay-at-home wife, the effect on employment if you do have to go back to work. And by the way, it's not even just about breaking up
It's not just divorce. Most men die first. So why is no one talking about life after your provider husband dies? This does not mean you should work, but this does mean you should participate in the finances.
What if your boyfriend dies or your husband dies, and after 20 years of being a stay-at-home mom, you have to go back to work? There's women that's happened to. And let's say he wasn't good with finances, so now you're in a ton of debt.
Talking about owning a home and phantom costs, I was intrigued. I looked over to Aldo and I said, how much debt are we in? Because I literally have no idea. And I think I was like in shock. Proceeded to tell me about other loans, personal loans. There was a loan that was supposed to be paid off in the amount of $66,000. It's in, I guess, collections. And that scared the crap out of me. When he wrote it all down, I almost fell off the chair. Like, I was floored. I didn't know that everything basically was being charged on credit cards and loans and things. A little bit of like a false sense of security.
It was a daunting task. I thought of a number, and that number I gave her was scary enough. And then when I started logging into all the accounts and finding everything out, it was twice as much.
Even worse, he didn't have life insurance, so he didn't really set you up. And that's why you have to be involved in the finances. Make sure both of you have life insurance. And being a stay-at-home mom, there's also potential for burnout, especially if you have a ton of kids and not enough help from your partner because they think they're going to work to provide. So you should do all the housework, all the cooking, all the childcare. You could potentially burn out, especially when the kids are younger. So now that we've done the pros and cons, I'm gonna go a little bit on social media. I'm gonna start by saying, can people in general stop putting Nara Smith and Ballerina Farm into the tradwife categories?
Social media tradwives, a product to sell. Recognizing that traditional wives on social media are not like those of the past or majority present. Many make more money than most men. Some are even breadwinners in their relationship.
I don't follow a lot of celebrities on social media. For influencers, I don't follow a lot either. Nara Smith and Ballerina Farm are two of the women that I do follow.
Everyone loves French toast in our house, so when my toddlers requested it this morning, I decided to just make it. I started off by making my brioche bread by making my sponge first, letting that rise, and then adding some eggs to that, some flour, and letting that come together in my stand mixer before slowly adding in some softened butter. Once that was all incorporated, I let my dough rise for a few hours before dividing my dough in 3 and rolling it out into about 9-inch ropes. I braided those up and tucked the ends in before transferring it over to my buttered loaf pan to rise for a couple hours more. While that was rising, I added some mixed berries to a pot with some lemon and maple syrup and made a quick mixed berry compote before transferring that over to a bowl to cool. When it was time for my brioche to bake, I brushed it with an egg wash, popped it in the oven, and pulled it out when it was golden brown. Everyone loves whipped cream on their French toast, so I made some of that as well before slicing into my bread once it was cooled. And then I was ready to whip up the French toast. I mixed some eggs with some heavy cream, cinnamon, and vanilla before drenching my bread in that and frying that until golden brown. I topped that with my mixed berry compote, some of that whipped cream, and I also had some passion fruit lying around that the kids absolutely love, so I put some of that on top as well. They absolutely loved it.
They're not tradwives. Not even really stay-at-home wives. Ballerina Farm, she works. And even before she started the farm with her husband, and people found out they were extremely wealthy. I don't know why people thought they were poor. I mean, she didn't give me poor vibes. She was a ballerina. Okay, and ballerina is not always the most lucrative career, but it can be. And it's expensive. And that's how I knew she just couldn't be poor. You put in more money than a lot of people would even end up getting out of it. But even beyond that, them and a lot of these social media tradwives are earning money on social media. Some of them are even making more money than their partners.
Are you making money from this content?
Have had a few sponsored deals.
When you say homemaker, right? How many hours of time do you spend making content?
Maybe 2 hours a day. I will spend filming, editing.
A day. So that is a job. Or do you make money from your content?
I do make money from my content
How much?
now. A range, enough to pay all the bills.
So you're the breadwinner. You are able to monetize it, but it does present a conflicting conversation because you are not financially dependent on your husband. You do have independence.
So don't believe everything that you see. When they set up that camera, when they are dressed beautifully to do sponsorship videos, to cook and to show you what they are cooking, a lot of them are doing very lucrative sponsorship deals, many of which are paying 4 and 5 figures per post, and they're doing these posts several months out of the year. Don't compare your experience as a tradwife, especially if you're not going to be on social media, to these women who are on social media, who are selling you something. And when it comes to Nara Smith, she's a model. model. I don't know why people act like they don't know she's an actual working model. Hopefully one day we can go into the whole thing about her giving birth and ballerina giving birth, people thinking they looked way better than other normal women. I don't want to go too deeply into that, but please feel free to remember these women's professions before they even got married, what they looked like before they had children, and it would make a lot of sense. Like the maths.
I wanted to quickly say that this is not about body shaming women, but letting people know how ridiculous the comparisons are. And it's not to say that you can't look like that after you give birth, but I'm speaking about the comparison a lot of people were making in the comment section. A lot of women were saying, I didn't look like this when I gave birth. I didn't look like this. Ballerina has always been a woman on the smaller size. For Nara Smith, she has her husband. She always talks about how her husband is taking care of the kids while she's making her videos. So it's really important to remember these and not to compare yourself. Be happy with the way you are, and if you're not, take the physical steps to change it. Everyone struggles at one point or another, and that's okay. But comparing yourself to somebody on social media is not productive.
If you are a woman who never looked like Nara Smith, who is a model before she got pregnant, but expect to look like her after you have your baby, and I hope not to see a lot of tradwives looking down career women. A lot of women are career women because they have to provide for their families.
Who can afford a tradwife? The realities of economics and how most men, past and present, cannot afford a traditional wife. This is a privilege very few women have ever and will ever have the privilege of experiencing.
Whether due to circumstances, very few people make over 6 figures per year. 18% to be precise of people, men and women combined, in America make 6 figures. A lot of households needs both incomes. The number of people who can even survive on $100,000 for a whole family are not many people. Unless you live in Kentucky or some very low cost area, you're still going to need more. It probably takes up to maybe $250 or more depending on where you're living for a lot of women to feel comfortable not working at all and still living a very comfortable life. And of course, the exceptions, if you already have a paid for house, $100,000 will go a very long way. But for a lot of people, they do need both income. And for career women, don't look down on traditional wives. If a woman has the ability and the privilege to stay home and nurture her family and her kids, I don't see why she shouldn't do that. I don't see why she needs to work just because. If he's making more than enough money to take up the entire family, why would you take time away from your family to work if you don't need to? Something you want to? Sure. If my husband was making a ton of money and I didn't have to work outside of the household and I could rather spend the time nurturing our family, our children, why not? I don't think we should be looking down on career women. And we shouldn't be looking down on traditional wives. Some people are just doing the best with the cards that were dealt to them. I know I am.
Conclusion: personal choice. Choose what works best for you.
So in conclusion, being a tradwife is not inherently a bad thing, with the exception of if you're cohabitating and you're not married. I could never support that, I'm sorry. But being a stay-at-home wife or being a stay-at-home wife with children, it is absolutely an amazing thing if you enjoy that lifestyle and if it's fulfilling to you. But just like anything else in life, it is important that we approach this with nuance, awareness, with clarity of mind, and not go in just thinking that it's going to be the most amazing thing ever. It is important that you have your safeguards in place, that you and your spouse have financial transparency. Open communication and mutual respect is very important. Your spouse has to look at your value as a stay-at-home wife, as a stay-at-home wife with children, as valuable, and have to respect that and see the value that you add in that, the work ethic that you put into that, for it to really be an amazing thing. And this will be my personal opinion, my personal non-advice.
My opinions. Given my unsolicited opinions about this topic, because it's a free world, remember I have the right to hold personal opinions, and you do as well. Share yours in the comment section.
Always be married before you cohabitate with somebody, especially if you plan to be financially dependent on them, and to at least have that one layer of legal protection. Make sure that you're also an active participant in your finances, not just because of divorce. People always think divorce. No, what happens if he dies? You need to know where everything is: life insurance papers, retirement account, any types of trust. Be an active participant in your financial life, both of you. Another thing is that your name should be on everything: house, on every car, on every account. Even if you contribute 0 to the household, you are one, an equal partner in that relationship. Men and women are different. You're not the same, but you're both human beings and you're both equal partners to make that one solid couple. And if you know this is a lifestyle that you want in the future and you're still young, like I am, like I said, I don't demonize this lifestyle.
Would you rather be a stay-at-home mom 24/7 or You've reached the right woman, because I've done both. I was the corporate 200K plus woman with a nanny and a meal prepper and a house cleaner and the yard guy and the pool guy and the plowing guy. And here's what I have to say. I gave blood, sweat, and tears into the company, and I thought I was irreplaceable. But turns out after my second child, who was delivered with his twin, who was a stillborn, turns out after that maternity leave, I realized that I was very much replaceable. So all that money and the blood, sweat, and tears that I put into work cannot compare to the blood, sweat, and tears that you get to put into your own kids, into your own home, into building your own world as a stay-at-home mom and as a small business owner.
There's still steps that you can take to at least have that layer of protection, one of which is to live a debt-free life. If you're going to at least want to be in this type of relationship, at least don't bring on the extra burden of debt. If you're not going to be financially contributing, I think it'll make you feel less guilty and it'll make it more of a smooth transition. Start contributing to your retirement account, because when you get married and you are financially dependent on your spouse, you will not be able to contribute to like your 401k, your Roth IRA, because you don't have earned income. You should still be doing that right now. If let's say I am 28 years old, I get married, and by 30 I have kids, and I'm like, oh, let me just stay home for a couple of years. Even though I will not be contributing to my Roth IRA or 401k, because I've been contributing for several years, I would still have compound interest building up. And that is just an extra layer of protection. For me, at least, will make me feel more comfortable being financially dependent. That's something that you should talk about, as well as how both of you should be able to access the money that both of you as a couple use. This has been a long video. I've been filming for like an hour, but thank you all for listening. I don't know how long this video will be or how long it'll take me to edit this video. So let me know in the comment section, what are your thoughts on all of this? There's stay-at-home wives, trad wives, stay-at-home girlfriend. Leave your thoughts in the comment section. And also be sure to like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, and share this video with somebody you think will be helpful towards. And also ring the notification bell so you do not miss out on any of my future videos. And until next time, take care, stay informed, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.